Hello there everyone, welcome back. And seeing as how it is the end of the year, it's time for the annual movies I've seen worst to first list, this time for 2020. Now this is one of the traditions I like to do on my channel, like for top 10 favorite movie moments and stuff like that, like at the end of each year, where I rank the movies I've seen in the year from worst to first. Obviously last year I think was my record, seeing I believe over at least 50 movies, so that video was interesting, long, and pretty fun to make. And I did a bunch of different stuff like top 3 favorite movies per year that decade, since that was the end of a decade. Here I'm gonna just this will be a pretty simple video because I only saw about 16 films this year, which I think is still pretty good all things considered. Now obviously some streaming movies will be counted here, because if I didn't do that there would probably be 5 or 6 films on the list. So without further ado, we're gonna rank the films that I saw in 2020 from worst to first. At the very bottom, the absolute trash of the year, is number 16, Dolittle. Now yes, this movie is at the very bottom, and it became a pretty difficult when I was making my list, because for the first few that I put at the top, those were no-brainers, I felt. But as we got to the bottom, I didn't really outright think one was like an abomination to film. It's just, when thinking of it, I think I was just coming down to, was there any positives in some of these lower tier ones, in my opinion? And that's really how I came down to it. And plus, were they even memorable? Could I even remember what happened? Dolittle was one of those movies that I even forgot I saw. Like, I looked, because I have a paper that I keep, that I write down movies when I see it, so that it's easier for me looking back and how I do my end of the year, videos. And I saw that Dolittle was on it, and I was like, I saw that this year? And I thought about it, I'm like, oh yeah, that talking animal movie with Robert Downey Jr. It's pretty funny because I completely forgot about it. But if I have to say something about it, it was really forgettable. It was just weird at times, especially that part at the end with the dragon. I don't even want to dive into that. A lot of the voiceover performances felt phoned in, and just, I can't remember anything else about it. So yeah, it's at the bottom. Number 15 is The Hunt. Now yes, The Hunt was supposed to come out last year, but unlike a lot of movies this year being delayed due to the lockdown and all, this movie was delayed due to controversy, because I remember, I think the premise was about it's really trying to make fun of politics and stuff, having stereotypes of liberals and conservatives. And so I think that got people on both aisles mad. And upon watching the movie, I'm just like, what's the fuss about? Because when watching it, I already get what they're going for, because you follow many characters just for a few minutes, and it keeps jumping from character to character. I don't even think you meet your main character till halfway in the movie, and it just a lot of the dialogue wasn't really that funny. They thought they were being clever. I respect them for trying, but it just came off as awkward for some of the parts. Some of the action scenes, I will give them that. Some of that stuff was pretty interesting. It felt like a cool knockoff Hunter Games, except not as good. But they did what they did, so moving on. Number 14, Birds of Prey. Now yes, I'm pretty sure, because this got well reviews from people, but no one saw it. And it was before the lockdown, so people can't blame the lockdown for that. This was a month before everything shut down. So it's just that the movie, people, audiences at least, weren't really that much of a fan of. And I watched it, and at first I didn't know what to make of it, because I was just but then upon just thinking about it, I don't know, it just kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because it's just I just don't get why they went with what they did, because they were changing how Harley Quinn was, because Harley Quinn, from at least the comic style, was always well known for being with Joker and stuff like that. She's crazy for him. They're both crazies. And here she's he dumped me, and they pushed him up to be even worse and stuff, which he is pretty horrible. They're all horrible. But it's I think they were trying to push this type of narrative, because every guy in the film was a jerk, dumb, or a dumb jerk. And it just, I'm just tired of movies doing that. Like, why do we have to prop down one gender and raise up the other? I don't know. It kind of reminded me of Ghostbusters 2016, which is not a good sign if your movie is similar to that. And just some of the fight sequences were just boring, and they kind of made no sense because, like, for example, there's this one in the police station. Like, I'm thinking this is rated R. These are villains, and they aren't really like, they're in that scene in the police station. I don't believe Harley Quinn was killing any of them. She was just knocking them out, and I'm thinking, why would you tame down some of the fight scenes and stuff in the movie if it's rated R? Like, some of that stuff was tamed down. I do love some of the colors, and there are some good moments between some of the characters. I'll give it that. And I mean, some of the music in the film was pretty solid too. It just wasn't as good as I think people wanted it to be. And I see people saying it's much better than Joker, and I just laugh to myself because that's ridiculous. But people have different opinions. That's perfectly cool. Number 13, Project Power. Now, the only reason why I saw this movie is because I was desperate to see a new movie, and I was trying to take my mind off of things because that was during the time when I was moving to my new place, so I was really stressed out about a whole bunch of stuff. So I thought, let me watch this new Netflix movie. That was a waste of my time because, man, like, I promise you, like, I know I said this with Dolittle, but I really, like, it's not that this movie was bad, it's just, it was really cliched, and I couldn't really remember that much that happened in it. And it just felt like it was trying to cash in on the superhero genre because it's about these people that take these pills and you either blow up or you gain superpowers for a limited time. And I'm just like, it's interesting in theory, but the villain, I can't even remember. The characters were okay. Some of the effects were passable for a TV show. But it just felt like a movie just to put on and watch, honestly. Number 12, and I'm probably going to get a lot of hate for this, but Hamilton. Yes, I was not a fan of Hamilton. Everyone, please. But no, seriously, I watched this, and I just don't get it, because, like, I appreciate the artistic creativity and all for making this and how popular and successful it is. That's really cool. It's just, for me personally, a lot of the songs weren't clicking with me. There's only one that I like, and that's the one from Jonathan Groff as King George or whatever. I love that song, the You'll Be Back. And some of the other ones are okay too. It's just like, I was just like watching it, I'm like, what's the hype about? Now, I'm not saying it's bad, because I'm not really into Broadway musicals or, theater productions and stuff like that. I'm more of a movie guy. And I don't know, maybe that might be it, but I didn't really click with this, which is perfectly fine. People have different tastes, but I'm not going to discredit them because a lot of them did a great job. The costumes and stuff like that, the stage and all that, really well done. It's just, it wasn't for me. Number 11, What Doesn't Kill Us. Now, for this movie, this was pretty cool because I actually had the creators reach out to me, and gave me a screener to watch this and then give it a review. So that's the reason why I got a chance to watch this, and I really hope they're getting success and all, because I know this year's been tough on a lot of people, especially people in the industry, because this was a nice little film. Like, it was kind of like this documentary or mockumentary or whatever you call it on after the zombie apocalypse. It's kind of, I wouldn't say it's similar to Warm Bodies, but it's similar to the fact that they the zombies have minds of their own and they think, and they're like their own species, really. Like they're their own group of people that have the disease but are trying to live with it, and they're just trying to live the normal lives, and they have to deal with stereotypes and stuff like that. So it was pretty interesting themes that they were tackling, and not everything was perfect about it, like I dived into in my video of it, but from what they were doing and what they were going for, I really did appreciate and like it. Number 10, Wonder Woman 1984. Yes, this is number 10. Here I was just really grasping for content, and this movie unfortunately did not satisfy me. I was glad to watch it, but I was really more curious about what all the fuss was about, because everyone was trashing on this movie on Twitter, and the reviews were getting dropped like crazy, and I was just like, what's so bad about this movie? You have people saying it was the worst DC movie and all that sorts of stuff, and I'm just like, and I watch it and I'm like, really? This is what everyone's getting mad about? And I'm like, I feel so bad for the people that worked on this, because it wasn't even that bad, but at the same time, it's not really that good either. Now, how I say this is basically how I broke it down in my video is the first half didn't really do it for me, but the second half really picked up and got better for me. Some of the effects are pretty horrible. I'm not gonna lie. I do admit the acting got better in this movie, especially from Gal Gadot. She did a phenomenal job. I like some of the stuff that they were doing I like what they did with Chris Pines, for example. I was worried because I hate it when they bring back characters that pass from previous films and undercut their sacrifice and stuff. I think here in this instance, I really do like. It's a really cliched plot with this MacGuffin, item that grants people their wishes and stuff. There's that. And the third act, I will say, is interesting that it isn't like there's a fight scene and all, but it's just how they did it was pretty different. So I thought that was interesting. And also, speaking of that, there isn't that much action in the movie, so maybe that's another reason why people got frustrated. And I will say, though, the end credit scene I really did like. I'm not a huge fan of Wonder Woman, but I respect the character, and I like the movies that I've seen so far. And this was a fine movie. It just wasn't as good as I was really hoping from the marketing and stuff. And speaking of marketing, you saw most of it before it came out, which is unfortunate because it's not really their fault due to the circumstances, but that still has to be taken into account. Number 9, The New Mutants. I know, who would have thought I would think this was better than a Wonder Woman movie, but here we are. The infamous New Mutants movie that was supposed to come out years ago at this point. I think it was supposed to come out in 2018 originally. It was the OG movie to be delayed multiple times, at least during this current state. So it was very fascinating to finally see this movie and see if it was even worth all this hype that people were talking about. And watching it, honestly, it was kind of interesting. It was like one of those small type of movies, but it still had some superhero stuff in it. I know what they were going for, this different tone. Like, it's supposed to be like this creepy thriller type where these group of kids who are mutants are trapped in this asylum and, stuff like that. And they're just struggling with their powers and stuff. And you have this evil doctor lady, and I'm just like, okay. And they were diving into some different stuff, and I was just like, I mean, honestly, I was fine with it. Like, it was a pretty solid movie to watch, and the reviews were trashing it for sure, and I felt bad because honestly, I thought it was a pretty solid movie. It's not perfect. I'm pretty sure no one's gonna remember it from time, and it ends for like a potential for a sequel, which will never happen. So that's pretty much all you got for those characters, which I think for most people isn't enough to give it props because there just wasn't that much, there, which was fine. It was just a fine movie to watch, and I think it was the first movie I saw back in theaters at least for the while they were open again. So that was nice as well. Number 8, Onward. Who would have thought a movie with Chris Pratt and Tom Holland, two of my favorite stars, working today would be this low on the list? But this film, I mean, I watched it, and it's basically the cliched Pixar movie because, I mean, just from the premise, it sounds really dark. It's about these two brother elves who are trying to do this spell that their dad left for them to bring him back to life to see him again because he's gone. I'm just like, it's like, it just sounds really interesting. Like, it's really out there and different. It's just, I don't know what to say. It's just like the world's really creative and cool and stuff. It just didn't feel like a Pixar movie to me. Like, I was watching it and I was really like, this movie kind of hits hard, emotionally. And then I'm just kind of watching it and I'm like, okay. And then it ends and I'm like, okay. I'm just like, well, that happened. So it was, again, of course, the voice acting across the board is pretty good. The animation was great, and I like what they were going for with the type of, story and emotional stuff that they were doing. It just felt pretty typical for what they usually do. Number 7, Tenet. Now, this was the movie that was supposed to save the theater industry, bring everyone back, and all this stuff. And it didn't do bad. It made like at least over $350 million, I'd say. But everyone moved their movies out again and stuff like that. So it didn't really do that good of a job at what it was trying to do. But upon watching it, it was a really confusing movie. That's the main criticism I would say about it. And that's why a lot of people, I think, didn't like it or want to see it. And a lot of the sound choices and stuff in the movie was like the audio mixing and stuff. Whoever did the job on that, sorry to say, but you did a pretty poor job because it's really hard to hear some parts in the movie. And I get it, during big action scenes and big set pieces, it's gonna be pretty loud and stuff. I get it. But during parts where they're talking, the music is so blaring over their dialogue that you can't even hear what's going on. And I'm just like, hello? That really took me out of the movie for a lot of it. And by the time I was able to fix, how I adjusted to it, I think it was a bit too late. So that could explain why a lot of other people were really disappointed. And of course, like the performances, I will say were great. A lot of how it looks in film and stuff is really well done. And a lot of the sequences, like, because it's, like a type of time travel movie, I'd say, how people are going forward and backwards and stuff like that is really cool to see how all that plays out and ties in. So there is that. Number 6, Clouds. Now, this was a movie that I was really surprised with because I didn't really hear of this movie, but I saw it was on Disney Plus, and I thought, you know what, I'll give it a watch. And so when I watched it, I learned that it's based on a true story about this kid who, was fighting cancer, and he found out that he only had a few months to live, so he wanted to be a musician and stuff. So he made this hit song, Clouds. And just watching it, it's just like, wow, because it really hits because the song's actually pretty good. The performances from the cast is pretty solid, and it's just a really, I don't know, it's just the movie is really, it's just pretty nice. It's like one of those sweet movies. It's sad, of course, but I don't know, it just has this sincerity to it that I really did appreciate. And not enough people, I think, talked about it or even saw it, so I definitely think it's worth checking out if you own Disney Plus. All right, we're at the top 5. I know we made it. And if you would have told me at the beginning of the year that this movie would be in my top 5, I would have laughed, but it actually is. And that is number 5, Sonic the Hedgehog. Yes, the little movie that initially released its trailer a year ago, had that horrible design, and they had to push the release date to fix it. And upon doing that, I think that really saved it, because if they kept that design, no one would have given it a chance. But honestly, we had a pretty nice, buddy cop type of movie, a cross-country road trip type of thing, where, you have Jim Carrey basically carrying the movie on his shoulders, James Marsden doing a great job as your main character type, Ben Schwartz, John Ralphio from Parks and Rec, doing great job for the voice work of Sonic the Hedgehog. And I don't know, it was one of those movies I was like, okay. They even had some cool stuff at the end that teased the sequel, which I'm actually kind of looking forward to. A lot of the effects, it felt like one of the better video game adaptations, which is kind of sad when you think about it, but honestly, good for them, good for the director, because he really tried, and I respect that. And it was just a nice, solid movie that I saw. Number 4, which probably has one of the best casts on this list for movies, The Devil All the Time. A movie with Tom Holland, Sebastian Stan, Bill Skarsgård, and many more actors. You have a movie that I don't think enough people saw or talked about, and it's one of those Netflix original movies, and I hear it's based off this novel. And upon watching the movie, I was really like, what? But just looking into it, because you have so many main characters that you follow and go down different paths, and it's one of those movies that is really just gritty, and how everything tied in, all these different events tied in with each other, and how in this town and stuff. I don't know, I really liked it. It's one of those older movies, I think from the 50s or 60s, so it had that type of time set, and I thought how it looked was pretty good. The performances were great. I think this was the best Tom Holland's ever done in a movie, at least dramatic wise, because I know we all love him as Spider-Man, but it was pretty solid. I really liked this movie. And number 3, we have The Invisible Man 2020. Now, yes, The Invisible Man 2020 came out in 2020, and it was pretty great. Now, it was made by the same director who not only did Upgrade, but he starred in the original Saw. So I was like, whoa, I think his name was Leigh Whannell, and bravo, because how this movie is so creepy and effective, because you have the main character, Elizabeth Moss, she's just acting off of nothing because it's just an invisible person. and what they did and the technology and stuff that they did to make that well done was pretty great. You had a pretty, sympathetic, plot, and because it's about this lady that's trying to escape this abusive boyfriend, and he he ends up mysteriously dead and leaves her all this money, but then this mysterious invisible person's messing with her, so it doesn't take a rocket scientist to piece two and two together, so it becomes a really interesting thriller movie. And the way that they had him invisible was different from the original from like the 30s, I think, but it was still like, it was a modern take, and I really did appreciate it. All that was great, really great fight sequences, and a crazy ending that I was just like pumped with. It was awesome. And of course, let's not forget about the score. Phenomenal score, especially at the end during the credits. I loved it so much. It was fantastic music. And now we have number 2, which technically would be number 1, but how I do it is movies I saw, like it may have come out in a different year. Like if I see it in theaters this year because of getting a chance to see it, I'll count it as this year. I did that with movies like I, Tonya, La La Land, etc. So this is no different for what my number 1 is. But for number 2, I'll say it's Soul. Now, Soul is easily one of the best Pixar movies, one of the few movies that made me tear up, and it's such, I really, like grasped with the plot, like it really hit me because it's so relatable. I really like the characters, it looks phenomenal, it was just a blast to watch, and I could see myself watching this again potentially in the future because what a movie, like what an ambitious, thought-provoking movie, like, what's your purpose in life, what's your passion, this and that, when you wow, it was great, guys. Like Pixar, man, wow. Okay, so with all that said, number 1, and it shouldn't be a surprise, but 1917. Now, yes, by technicality, Soul would be number 1 this year since it came out this year. But because of my criteria, I count 1917 this year since it came to a theater near me this year. But what a fantastic war movie with, like, I love the cinematography, which is the main praise that people hyped it up for, like, done in the one take. Loved it to death. It was great. The human story to it about, like, it seems like such a basic thing about these 2 soldiers crossing through enemy territory to deliver a message to save potential thousands of men on this other side of the war, and just like you really feel like you're on that journey, and when it gets to the end, like you're just like out of breath and tired, like with the cast that went through that. And I really do appreciate a movie that could put you, the viewer, through something like that. And of course the music was amazing. There's a lot of moments that really hit hard, and by the end you're just like, whoa, like this movie's great. And it really is. I think it is definitely one of the best war movies ever made. It was just a phenomenal movie. Like, that's why it was nominated for all those awards. This was truly a god tier movie. So, with all that said, those were all my thoughts on the movies I've seen. Worst to First 2020 edition. Again, what are your guys' list if you wanted to make a list of the movies that you've seen this year? Please let me know down below in the comment section. I would very much appreciate it. And if you want to hit the subscribe button as well and hit the bell as well to get notified when I upload, that'll be really much appreciated. Again, thank you all so much for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next one, which will be I believe the name will be Top 10 Entertainment Moments of 2020. I think that's a pretty good name for what I'm going to do it with. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll catch you all later. Bye!